Science is constantly proved all the time. You see, if we take something like any fiction, in any holy book, in any other fiction, and destroyed it, okay, in 1,000 years' time, that wouldn't come back just as it was. Whereas if we took every science book, right, and every fact, and destroyed them all, in 1,000 years, they'd all be back, because all the same tests would be the same result.
That's good.
This is one of those, like, gotcha statements that you hear from people that doesn't actually mean much of anything. Because Christianity has never purported to be a religion that can be fully discovered through, like, human investigation of natural causes. It's never purported to be that. So it proves nothing to say that you wouldn't discover it in the way you didn't initially discover it. That doesn't say that. Now, would God be rediscovered? If you could erase everyone's knowledge of God, absolutely God would be rediscovered. People would be out there theorizing about God's existence and arguing from a bunch of different reasons to believe God exists, and they've done this many times in many ways. But would the truth about, like, say, Abraham be rediscovered? Isaac? Would Scripture somehow come back together? No, not in this hypothetical where it was all just suddenly erased. Not apart from a miraculous work of God would it come together. The point is that this just doesn't prove anything. Ricky Gervais is just a silly gotcha statement. Now, there's more I can say on this, which is that science, it rose in human history, not by default. It's not like humans were always going to come up with a scientific method and then start to push the boundaries of it and understand science better and better. It could have happened much, much longer in the past. It arose when it did, partly because Christianity provided an environment and a philosophy that science could be built upon. Now, some might say science has no philosophy, and that's simply not true. You can literally go get your PhD in the philosophy of science if you want. Like science has a philosophy, and scientists and physicists who rip on philosophy don't understand. They are just fundamentally misunderstanding, like, the basics of philosophy. And I'm not alone in saying this. Okay, this just talk to any philosophers out there, any of them, just pick one, and they're going to tell you the same thing. Yeah, so science is based on certain philosophical principles that science doesn't give you. So it's based on the idea that we live in an orderly universe. Does science prove you live in an orderly universe? No, it relies on the idea that you do. So that when you provide an experiment and you do it over and over again, that proves that that's just how that thing happens, right? That this is how the universe functions, by sort of order and design. And if you might feel that the word design is too loaded, but let's just say order and structure and integrated systems. So that is something that Christianity gives strong support for. I don't look at Mercury on Christianity and think that Mercury is exhibiting control over people's fates and souls because of its position in the sky. No, Christianity debunks that and says, no, that's just something God made. God is the one in control. These are just his creations. The sun, the moon, the stars, they're just things God made. They're not deities. It's not a magical evaluation of the universe. Even in the Bible, when miracles happen, they're seen as miracles, not as normal happenings. Miracles, not as normal happenings. And so there's others. Tom Holland wrote a book on this, not on this specifically, but related to this, about sort of the impact of Christianity in our world today. And so Ricky Gervais' statement is odd because science doesn't just arise in a vacuum. It came with philosophical presuppositions that were supplied by Christianity and an environment that Christianity very much helped push forward. Does that mean it's the only way science could come around? I'm not saying that. I'm just talking about what did happen in history. So here's the oddity of this statement, is it's very powerful to people. If all scientific knowledge and religion were erased, science would eventually be rediscovered, but not religion, not God. It feels powerful, but it's completely powerless. You're not saying anything. And what you're saying is neglecting the actual history of how science came about. It's ultimately meh, in my opinion. We get these kinds of questions. Christopher Hitchens asked a question he was a popular atheist. Name one thing that a Christian moral act that a Christian can do that an atheist cannot do. And he told others to ask this question. He asked it in all his debates, and he felt like it was a real trump card. And even though you can answer the question that loving God is the moral thing, it was a silly question because it doesn't prove anything. What if atheists can do all the same moral things a Christian can? Like, what does that mean? We're not saying Christians are superhumans with abilities and powers other humans don't have. We're not saying they have vocal capacities to say words others can't say, or physical capacities to move in ways others can't move, so that we have to it's just a weird question that confuses people. It reminds me of when Bilbo Baggins said something along the lines of I like less than half of you. I know half of you, less than half of you have as well as I ought, and like less than half of you something. I don't remember what he said. I still can't, because it's just it's funny and it's a zinger, but it's hard to figure out what he even is saying. That's kind of the same thing with this particular statement from Ricky Gervais. So I hope that this has helped. If you're a non-believer, I know you see me up here like some guy on the internet, and there's a lot of fakery on the internet. I'm 100% genuine here. I really believe Christianity is true. I believe there's evidence for it, both from realms of physics and science and stuff like that can support this, as well as philosophy and fulfillment of scripture and the historical evidence for the resurrection of Jesus, giving strong indication that is the best explanation for what happened. I think that there's also the transformation in my own life. And I would want you to know the same hope and love and truth that there is in Jesus Christ that I have. I'm a fallible person. I'm as fallible as you, whether you consider that insulting or not. But I do believe that Christianity is actually true. And I hope that something we've said here today points you in that direction.